Welcome back to Lights Camera Thrills, the podcast where we dive into the world of films and the creative minds behind them. I'm Diksha Sharma, and today we have a special guest joining us, an incredibly talented musician, composer, and innovative soul, Kayvon. Kayvon's musical journey is as fascinating as his songs. From growing up with a passion for creativity to finding solace in music amid life's chaos. He has carved his own path in the industry. We'll talk about his inspirations, his experience balancing cultures, and of course, his latest work. So, whether you're a music lover, an aspiring artist, or just here for a great conversation, you're in for a treat.
I was always, I feel like I was like to be creative as a child. I like games, and I just like things that were just creative art in general. And I eventually just got into music. It was something that was fun, that was soothing as well, because the home life was kind of chaotic. And I kind of realized over thinking about this because it also made me feel productive as well, which, in my family, which is productivity, being working successful is very important. Maybe even music didn't seem something that was productive to them, but I felt productive when I was doing it. So it filled that role within my life as well.
Right. And were you always drawn to music, or um, what was that like for you, like in childhood?
It's funny. I kind of like to listen to songs, but when I would go to like school and other people were listening to songs, I didn't know what everyone else was listening to, and I kind of just like music. Then I think I started listening to like Red Hot Chili Peppers a lot, and they had like these really fun like bass lines. I was like, oh, I want to do that. That sounds like fun to do and play, and it's all interesting, and it's just kind of more me, more free spirited. I was kind of odd, so that made me feel like I could connect with something, and then it kind of just grew from there. Just like heavy bass, I liked heavy bass, and it just kind of just expanding my music taste, and it just kind of moved on from there.
Yeah. What makes you feel like you were odd? You just said you feel odd. You felt odd.
I don't feel like that as much anymore, but just maybe not, just the chaos growing at home, and just maybe how I felt growing up, and maybe just feeling excluded from things, and just also not knowing how to interact with people at a young age just made me feel odd, and just not having similar interests until eventually, most people blossom into their own. But that definitely helped take care of that problem for me.
Yes. Do you think the chaotic environment at home was like one of the biggest factors in you felt like out of place, or did couldn't open up much?
Yeah, I would have to say that I didn't know, like, is if this was something the things that happened I could like relate to, or people would understand, or if it's normal normal. So I often was like, oh, it's, either I'm just being over dramatic, or it's better just not to speak about these things.
And you would say because these were like one of the things that when you were back home, these things were not expected of you, or you were not sure what was expected of you at home, so that was something that reflected on the outer world as well. That must be pretty hard, to judge every time if I'm speaking enough or not, or should I say more or less about that?
Yeah. I tend to like ramble or over talk sometimes, and it's just something I've been working on. And I know there's nothing like specifically wrong with it, but no one wants to hear talked off.
Let's talk about your family a little bit. Your family is from the Middle East, Iranian, and but you were born and raised in America.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? Is there a disconnect there, or as you said, it was a bit chaotic back home?
There is. It's funny you bring that up, because it's something I want to talk about at times. I don't get a chance to talk about it. There was like, if there is like any like chaos back home, it's kind of just like, oh, that's like, that's old school, where there's a foreign country, it's a foreign culture, and they don't just see it as, hey, that's just kind of, you know, abnormal behavior in any way. Um, so that was a challenge referring to the chaos, but there's also just, the challenge of like I said, relating to people. And my parents come to America. I'm growing up. There are it's a melting pot, but there's, a lot of, white people. Some people would say we're white, but I'm not, I have a little bit European, but we kind of get put into like a Middle East category. It's kind of like falling in between the cracks. Um, I feel like it's not a big minority. It is a minority. There's other cultures that are minorities, but there's still way many more people. When I went to school, there was maybe, I think I spoke with you about this before. There's like a whole group of Asian people, whether it's Chinese, Korean, or Japanese, or various cultures. Even each individual one I said, there's many people that have like a group to talk to. They feel like they connect, and like I didn't feel like I saw a big group of Middle Eastern people, Iranian people, and even African Americans or Latino students. I saw big groups of them, and I did not. There's maybe a few other Iranian, Eastern people in the school, and it's just we don't have that big community over here. That term diaspora here. We're kind of like a spread out people. I'm not from there, but I don't I don't grow up out of the culture here. Wasn't raised in it too much. I don't have too many other people connect with it here. So it's just like I said, it was one of those things that made it a little bit harder to connect with people. The friends come over and they see my like crazy food, quote unquote crazy food, compared to normal steak and eggs. And I had like Asian friends that could relate with that experience, but it's still, still a little bit of a disconnect.
Yeah, of course. I kind of understand you because when I went to America, it was a little different for
Mhm.
me too. And I would say in your case, it's difficult to even imagine because when you go home, it's a very different
Mhm.
environment, and you go to school, it's very different, and you are the one who has to balance it
Mhm.
both the expectations, right? So it must be very difficult to balance that. People don't talk about that enough, and of course, community support is there. I was lucky enough. I had a lot of Indian people around me who were going through the same things I was going through. So it was like I always felt like there was someone I could discuss. Okay, this happened today. What should I do? Has this happened to you? That also kind of helps. And I'm sorry you didn't have that kind of community or support. Uh, that could definitely would have helped in so many
Yeah,
ways.
it's all right. I end up having like my friends and some people I meet through music, and it's nice. But just it's I just hear I've heard some crazy things, and it just kind of upsets me when I'm like, I'm coming from the same place as you, or it's not a competition, but it's just I don't know why you're making it making it one. It kind of throws you back, and you kind of look at that person differently, and you don't really feel so comfortable around them anymore. Um,
Do you want to talk about any specific incident that happened, or maybe want to elaborate
It
on
was
that a
just
little bit?
I think I was with somebody, and they're like, "Oh, you don't know what we help our people out around here. You don't know what it's like to do that." And I was just like, because we need help and we need to work up from the bottom. I'm just like, I don't have any of my people around here. Around here. I'm like, okay.
God.
I'm like, my parents immigrated here too. I'm just like, it's just like the way they see it. I get it. They kind of just see me as a white person that has generational wealth. And I'm just like, okay, but it's not exactly like that. Like we're not like poor, but just hearing those things is just like, okay. Like you just feel the hatred in people's hearts, and you're just like, all right.
Yeah, because like there is visible minority, and then there is like minority that is not very visible but still
Oh
minority
yeah,
after all.
like I don't know. You probably fall into kind of the same category as me. There's all this talk about representation in movies. I don't mind, but I don't see how many Iranian or Indian people. I think there's still much more, Latino, African American, white people, and then Iranian and Indian people in movies.
It yeah, I would say like there are stereotypes, and there is very few representation. Lately, I have seen a few shows like there was one in Bridgerton where they showed
Hmm.
one of the characters. She was Indian. And then there was this show about a teenager series on Netflix. I think the main character was Devi. So I think these characters kind of showed what Indians are
Hmm.
like, instead of, how that there was Phineas and Ferb and there was Baljeet in it, and that was the stereotypical image of Indian people as well. That has changed. There is a little bit of more representation here
Hmm.
and there. So I also feel like, and it is better than what it was before. Like, it's much more accurate
Hmm.
now. So I feel a little bit of representation is there, but you are absolutely right. It's not like how other communities get, the attention. I would say that. Um. Anyway.
And that's all right. I just when
um.
the hatred starts coming towards me because the color of my skin as well, and I'm just like that's when I'm kind of putting those points out there. It's like please just peace.
Has that impacted how you create music in any way? Like, is music also a place where you try to balance both cultures?
So I don't have much like culture from background from my culture. I would like to, so I've been trying to like as at the time permitting learn a little bit more about my culture. I have like an Iranian instrument I'm trying to learn. It's called a kemençe. I can let me see if I have. So this is like a traditional Iranian instrument. It probably looks familiar to maybe something you have. It's called a kemençe. Is a spiked fiddle. So this is the spike, and then they kind of usually sit down and they play it, kind of like a violin, and they move and rotate the strings. It's around the same range as a violin, tuned differently normally, approximately. But so just trying to get in touch with it and learn and just connect with people. It gives you a chance to like you learn the song and you learn the background of the song and it tells you a little bit about the culture. So maybe slowly learn, that folk music. That's what folk music is the culture of the people.
You have learned the instruments
I'm no professional, but I'm
that you
starting. I'm dabbling. It's I feel like it's a journey, and I'm taking this chance to learn more about my culture through that way.
and do you feel that there was like a pivotal moment that you would say, like, this was the moment I decided I'm just gonna make music. This is it.
It was like in high school, I kind of knew, like subconsciously, I was just making music. I knew I wanted to do it. And there's always, oh, what do my parents think they want to prove? Or I was like, oh, I'm not going to make the money like they said. And eventually I was just doing it, like, just working and making my own music. So I guess sometime around the end of high school, after high school, I was just like, I'm going to do this no matter what and just do what it takes. And it was kind of the same idea, but the form, the shape, or the sub goals have been changing. I'm going to do music for games or my own music, or I've been working towards making music, improving myself, and getting it out there.
Building towards the
Yeah,
goal,
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess.
It's
Yeah.
I usually just say I just want to like be able to like make a living through our music. I don't necessarily want to be some rich mogul. I would love it if people love my music. Appreciation. That's like a topic I think we might talk about later on. But I just want to make a living making music, or doing what I love. I want to at least be happy with what I do on a daily basis and not go to work hating it.
Right. Um, well, now that we are at this, topic, do you want to talk a little bit more about your process of creating music?
Sure,
What process do you
sure.
use? Yeah.
So, do we want to start about kind of like film music or just kind of like?
Let's talk about what interests
Uh-huh.
you first, and then we can maybe break down towards films.
Um, I'm really a big fan of what some people call it like a guitar, or I don't know, older guitar players. They call it like a lick or a catchy melody or a catch or a motif. Something that showed like da 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 da. Something you could kind of repeat in different notes. And it's maybe that wasn't too catchy, but that was just an example of how you could repeat it at different spots with different harmonies. And it's an easy basis. It's really something you can start working there, and then you can start harmonizing it, and you can start changing it. And it's a good for the listener because, like I said, you can find something that's catchy, easy for them to listen to, identify, maybe even hum along with, and it's a good starting point for you or the person as a composer or musician to start with, because it's just a basic idea and it's small and you can just keep expanding it and playing with it, and that's been done from years since the classical days. And you could do that in classical music or electronic music or whatever.
Okay, so motif would be the very first step where you lay the, I would say,
It's
background
like the little
or the
musical idea, like dun da da dun, dun da da dun, and you'll kind of hear it over and over through the song, or you'll hear it multiple times through the song, or you might take the idea and play with it. Like if you have the color red, and then you might change the color red to pink by adding some white, then you change it back to red, then you change it to purple, but you kind of got the red in there in a way the whole time. It's just kind of changing, coming back, and as you can see what I'm saying, just that one thing, just changing the one thing is gives you so many ideas from it, and they all sound good together and coherent.
right. So you put layers
Yeah.
after
So I'll
layers
kind
is
of
what you're
start with
trying
the
to say.
motif or the melody, the main idea, and then we'll kind of like add some layers or some harmonies. Once I get I'll probably like maybe write a melody and then another like melody to go around with it to complement it, the background, and then I'll get some chords and just kind of have a harmony. And this might be where I will go and I'll usually have an initial note I start with the melody and kind of pick a key, or that'll kind of help me get into my key. And then I'll just I'll just try to build a chord progression from there that just kind of is exciting, or, stays fresh the whole time. And then I will, I guess, superimpose the melody on top of that chord progression. So like I said, dun da da da. That'll be the melody on one chord, and then be like dun da da da, and that'll be the melody on another chord, and like dun da da da, or da 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 da, and and then you kind of have an easy roadmap to make a song very quickly. You have your chords, you have your melody, and you could just and then just add the melody to the chord and change it a little bit and make little variations throughout the way. And the song almost kind of builds itself at that point.
Right. And as you said, like when I asked the question, you said for the films or the other music that I create. So would this process change if you are making this music for a
Yeah,
film?
so the film is nice to have a melody. Depends if it's more background music, but it's not always that simple. Like a lot of times, like I think you were asking me about thriller songs. A lot of thriller music is kind of these long, evolving sounds, and it's building up you spoke with me before, and you might ask later about the tension. You can't really stick a melody in there, or it's kind of like it's kind of just a melody is already kind of going. It could be a very long, slow melody, but the listener's not going to be really thinking about the music itself, or is they're going to be thinking more about what the music makes them feel, and because you're trying to tell a narrative, so you don't always have that musical freedom. The music is not the main focus in a movie, as opposed to what it'd be when you're listening to it yourself. So you're trying to complement the movie more when you're scoring for a movie. I don't see it as I try not to see it as the music and a video separately, just like side to side, like a burger and fries. I try to see it as the like cheese on the burger as part of one bigger whole. That it'll be incomplete without the music. So I'm just trying to add what's missing. What's already missing when I'm making an audio, just like what you need to tell the story.
Or what was your experience like at the
Mm-hmm.
college, and what stood out for you at the program, and what could the school do better, or any program could do better when they're teaching music composition?
Definitely. So I like the school. The teachers were cool. They all most of them were nice, but I like how they reach out and they really connect with you, especially in the composition program. I went during COVID. So I started like right as COVID hit, and then, they closed the school, and then, I did some time remote, then I went back in person. So I don't know how much this affected it, but I do wish maybe we had more chances to have our music played. They did just give us a chance, maybe like every semester, a few semesters, to have our music played by a group. But it would be nice if we had like a class where we could have met up with students that were performers and had our music played. Like just more chances by either whoever they hire or more students to have our music played, whether it be longer or shorter pieces. I feel like that would have been very helpful. More chances to connect. We had them, but they're like very busy, and they were, I don't know how to explain it. It was like they're like co-op classes, so it's I feel like there just needs to be more solid infrastructure for multiple people in the art community to come together, whether it's like video or dance or poetry and music, and just have like a space like that they can connect and be like, hey, I want you to help me with this, or a class that facilitates that more. Is I understand is kind of the whole organization process is hard, but that would be really nice. And
So you mean like more little bit of more connection to the real world while
from
you're
the
at
real
school?
world and more with the people in the school, because you see how we're talking now, and that's from us connecting. And I wish I got a little bit more, because there's times where like, yeah, I could have reached out, but I was so busy with my classes. And it's just, it would be cool if I could just walk in and, to somewhere in like, communal space in the art building where the dancers and people just hang out and be like, hey, does someone want to dance on my song, do background dance, or hey, you do the movie, and just like talk with them. Is kind of just, I don't know if it's just me missing out or being shy, but, just having like, a space that really makes people open up and feel friendly to like be like, hey, I'm an artist and I would like to connect with other artists.
Yeah, some sort of collaboration. I think that also helps
Hmm.
art, right? In a lot of ways when you are with different kind of people who don't do exactly
Hmm.
what you do. Yeah, that definitely helps. I also learned a lot about music from you back then, and now see we are here on a
Yeah.
podcast, so learning more. um, but did you feel like there were any other gaps, or you felt like this was one of the major ones?
I guess it's kind of odd because it's like music kind of abstract, but maybe more concrete, like techniques for like music or composition, like very specifically, because we do talk about ideas and like, I don't know if there was. They kind of asked me about key change. It seems very simple, but like, it was kind of scary for me to be like, oh, it's hard for me to do a key change, but now I do it very easily in like different ways. But there should be like, these specific where you move from like one key of C to another one key of E, or you want to do some crazy key change to like G sharp, which would people be like, oh no, that's not allowed, or that's weird and it won't sound good. But just the fact that you do those exercises, it was very good, because even if you do something really odd or crazy, when you simplify it, it becomes very easy for you, and it's going to sound good. It's kind of just like lifting weights, you know what I mean? But like with your brain and artistically, um, even like speaking about like, they talk about like, they don't talk about different kind of like drum rhythms. There's different kind of like rhythms for different kind of genres, and I don't really have like, we cover drums and making a pattern, but they don't say, hey, if you want to make a house beat, you do like 4 on the floor. If you want to do like a reggaeton, this is the way. Or if you want to do like some trap beat, or if the backbeat or halftime, those are just things that come up all the time, and especially with the people kind of music people are doing those days, and just there's no shortcuts, but those are kind of things that are a shortcut. Just, hey, this is something that comes up all the time, and we should just like go over it. Why not? And
So the terms that you use right now are like some of the terms that like a lingo that goes
yeah,
around when
yeah,
you're creating music.
just like the like a lot of times the snare is on the 2 and the 4. Like in a lot of music, it's on the 2 and the 4. So if you just tell the people, it's on the 2 and 4. Always a lot of the halftime, the snare is on the 3, so that's the counting 1, 2, 3. And the reggaeton has a very specific kind of drum beat that you hear over, and there's like variations of it. But let's say you want to make something that has that a little bit more of that feel, at least you know, like, hey, I make the drum sound like this, and that kind of get me started with the feel, and you work around that. That saves a lot of well, saves a lot of time for them. There's a lot, research and knowledge. That's research I do. How do I make something like this that I can just instead of them spending a couple hours, I can just give them a quick little like lesson on it.
But other than like these few gaps that I think were there, one thing that was specifically that I remember was you said that the critiquing system really helped you at college to develop your
Yeah,
sense of
yeah,
music.
yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
it kind
that?
of really started when I was at the College of San Mateo, and I was taking my electronic music classes, and I was just learning, teaching myself, making whatever, and I'm making like electronics song. And they're like, "Oh, it's nice. We like your melody." And one of the critiques was to work on the mixing. And I kind of sat there. It's like, "Oh, I work so hard." But the one of the terms, I guess, in America, I don't know how many people still use this kind of butthurt. I was kind of like butthurt. I was like, "Oh," but I was like, "Okay, she's right," or like, "He or she is right." And I kind of just worked on it, and it was just something. I guess I was so butthurt that I worked on it so much. And then one day, I'm just sharing my music with another person. And the guy's like, "The mix is so clean, man. What this is so good." I just felt so good. I was like, oh my gosh. So, you kind of just got to learn, like, even if you got to take the criticism and you got to just take it and get butthurt sometimes and work on it. And also you got to say, maybe you get butthurt and maybe you got to realize the criticism means nothing. Maybe they're just trying to give you a hard time. Maybe it's just a matter of opinion. So you also, what's that saying? You got to take it with a grain of salt.
Anything else that stood out for you that was like it was the right decision to be at this place?
Just I wanted to study music so long, and just in not having the support of my family, just like saying it's not going to be a good idea. Just being there, um, made me happy. I one of the teachers came when it was speaking at San Francisco State, not San Francisco, from San Francisco State, was speaking at College of San Mateo. Talking about the program, and I like the way he carried himself. So he became one of the, I spoke with him, and he was one of the composition professors there, and I took some lessons with him. So it was cool to have, like, some people, like, I could feel like I have a mentor to talk to music about, or like someone to actually guide me and I could ask questions about. Because they didn't have any like composition classes at community college, and it's very hard to find anyone to like help you find your way, especially if you don't have any formal, like, too much formal training or any formal training from the background. There's a lot of people who are in music have been playing like band or orchestra or something for years, and like have some, like, training experience, practice.
Right. But when we talk about music school, you said you went for music
Yeah.
composition. What else can people go to? Like, not everyone wants to be a
Yeah.
music composer. What else can they go to school
So
for?
when I went to the community college, they didn't have composition, but they have like electronic music. So it's, recording, audio mixing, making your own digital music, all sorts of stuff in that whole digital field. There's a whole thing. But then we want to get more into like very specifically the music side. Um, when you when I sat down and I was going over my classes and stuff, it looks like I saw the multiple paths they could take. So there's like music education, for teaching music. So you learn, normal skills and like conducting and stuff, and you also learn how to teach and how to use those to teach kids or youth music. So that's a popular path because it helps people get like ready to teach and perform and right out of school. There's music performance, which is exactly what it sounds like. You go, you learn to perform. Hopefully, you get a job at the San Francisco Symphony or something. It's a very competitive field, very rewarding. You could also use that, go teach private lessons, or even if you want to play it for yourself. There's I don't know if it's a conducting major, but there's some people go for a path for conducting, which I feel like might be overlooked if you're not in music.
Yeah, well, what's
So
conducting?
you want to have like the orchestra or the band or the choir or whatever. It's the person in the front, and they count 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're keeping everyone together, and they usually kind of run the rehearsal well. They bring this, a lot of times they'll bring the music and they'll say, "Hey, this is what we're working on," and then will say, let's go, let's start. They keep the time. They have everyone together and have people watch them. They're like, the clock, but also when they'll listen for when they're rehearsing, like, oh, you're off, or this is wrong, or good job. And they'll get the whole song together. And then they're also, it's kind of like the coach. Why didn't I just say that the coach is the coach of the band or the choir or something pretty much?
All right. So, music composers, you can go to education, you can be a conductor, and what options are there other than that?
There's those are. I don't know if I can think of anything else down the road of studying. There might be things like you could be a. There's a lot of things, but there's like musicologists, so you can like. There's one teacher that studies like the music around the world. Like you're talking about music and culture. He was actually Iranian. He was Hafez, and he was really cool. He shows the videos, and he's just traveling around the world playing a saxophone with people around the world. And it's like, dude, that's awesome. And he's like teaching. He taught us all about the cultures and music. We learned about different like Indian instruments, Chinese instruments, Iranian instruments, European instruments, and he teaches the culture with it. So that's really cool. There's music history, all about the history of the music, and things like how it connected to the church and why this chord was used specifically in reference to God or whatnot, and maybe how the music was developed in the early ages. So there's even jobs for like, but this is very niche, music, librarian. So there's very niche jobs, and then working backwards from the ones I was talking about, those are kind of the more general jobs.
Right. And I think there could be a repetition of information here, but let's say this is going to school would be considered like a traditional path of, going into the industry. What if someone wants to start on their own and cannot or do not want to go to the school? Are there any options for them as well?
There are. I was doing that for a lot. I was just studying what I could, and you can just, take online classes. I don't know if you consider getting like a private tutor going to school. But going back what you said, going to school to get into the industry, I don't want to be argumentative, but I feel like don't look at it that way, especially if you're studying like art or music. I went in and I got an internship. I got in. I didn't necessarily get a composer job right out of it, but I'm still very happy I went. I just went to improve my own skills, and I'm very happy with like the improvement I got, and I put a lot of effort into it. So I wouldn't. If that comment maybe not answers your question, but if that helps, I would say if the school don't look, just go at it. Just go for what's going to help you do what you want to do and get to your goal. Going to school and learning is just about getting the techniques to get that idea out of your brain and make it sound how you want to sound. So, I really was, I began school before because I had like, bad drama and stuff. And then I went and it was actually a great place for me for music. And I was just so involved. It was awesome. So do whatever you can, study, I would say, to sum it down, figure out where you want to go, figure out where you want to get, and figure out how you're going to get there. And I think that's going to be the best thing for you.
And what if I am someone who has already created music? I have it on my hard drive. How does it reach the audience?
Well, first you got to release it. That's what I get here. I had that feeling to, just understand as an artist or a musician, you might be a perfectionist, whoever's out there. I get that. Just try to make it as great as you can to the point you burn out, finish your project and just get it out there, put it on SoundCloud, put it on YouTube, Spotify, whatever you can, and release it, share it with your friends. Social media, they have ways you can post on Instagram and run ads. I use SoundCloud. There's DistroKid where you can not just upload it, but you can distribute it from SoundCloud to iTunes or Apple Music. Or I call it iTunes. I don't know if that exists anymore. Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. It will distribute it for you. I think there's DistroKid. There's multiple platforms that will do that. So just get it out there. And I think the important part, one of my teachers said, and he made a point of his right, is you got to do live shows. So that's something I'm working my music. I'm on my way up to. He always made an example of Beyonce. He's like, oh, she puts like so many butts in the seats at the, at the stadium. Each one of those butts buys a ticket, and they usually buy the snacks and all the people in the advertisement. It's like even on a small stage, but just it's the marketing yourself. On a smaller scale, you're getting the people come in. They come see your show. They get to know you. They look you up online. They look at your music. They tell other people about you. They come back to your show. You get to know them. People like the engagement. So I feel like that's a really important part because everyone knows about online. I feel like everyone's so tunnel vision focused on online. You remember that there's even if you're doing just kind of like your DJ or your microphone, just make a show for the people, make them have fun, connect with them.
Right. Um, let's talk about music in terms of films, and the broader question that I have for you would be, how does music influence the narrative of the film? Do you think it affects it in any way, or they both go separately or can work separately as well?
I feel like music definitely affects the narrative. It can make a sub narrative, like even when you see something visual on screen that let's say something happens on the screen, someone's getting killed, but the main character's turned away facing the camera, and someone's get stabbed silently in the background. We know that person died, but the main character might not. So we're getting a form of information that the other character doesn't, and that's telling us a story. And also the fact that this character doesn't know is part of the story. So the information that we get and that the other characters don't all have is the information gap, is very important in the way it's portrayed is very important as well. And the same thing can happen with the music. I think I just like this example because it's really easy. If you put like watch a Jaws and then there's like you see the fin, it's scary. It has the dun 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 dun. It's kind of ominous music. You expect the shark, something bad's going to happen. Something bad does happen. But if they put maybe some playful music, and you could think, oh, maybe just a dolphin swimming, and it's not so eerie and it's not so scary, and then you're all surprised. Why is the person all what's happening to the person? So it does add a lot to the narrative, and it does adds a lot to the storytelling, and it can make ambiguous moments in the film less ambiguous, or vice versa, where you can make it ambiguous on purpose. I've been watching a lot of Dexter. Yeah, I don't know if you watch that show. It's about that guy who's like a serial killer, but he only kills bad people, like convicted felons and stuff, or other killers. And there's times where he's like, oh, about to get caught, and the music is just like he thinks he's about to get caught. And he's like, did they figure me out? And the music is so ambiguous, you don't know if it's good or bad, and it's just like sometimes it goes into I got to clean this up, or sometimes it goes into no, I'm safe. They're on to someone else. So just having that that ability is incredibly powerful.
I think that was also one of the troubles that I had when I was making one of my first films. And the placement of music, since it was a thriller, I felt like wherever I put the music, I felt like I was giving away what was going to happen. So it's a very thin line to know, especially when you're starting out. Like, will this give it away, or should I give the clue? So it's. I think it must be very difficult for the composers also to create that kind of music. Um, does it help for you to know the entire script when you're creating the movie, or do you guys take it scene by scene when you're creating a background score?
For me, I would say it helps to know the script. I'm a very detail oriented person. I like to just like look at things and find any like minor detail that I can work with, and just try to do something that'll make it stand out or add more to narrative. it doesn't always work out. I don't always make something magic, but I experiment a lot, and every once in a while I'll be like, this is nice. This is something cool. So I always like as much information as I can get.
How's it like collaborating with the directors and editors? What's that experience like for you?
I thought it would be more difficult than it is. I haven't had too many experiences, but I was like, oh, I'm not going to get maybe too much creative freedom. But the thing is, you get it's kind of hard to say you don't get much creative freedom, because if you're making something, it's you, it's what you create, and so I a lot of times I get to work on my own stuff, and I can give them ideas, and it's just, oh, you don't like it, that's fine, I'm gonna work on it. If they understand the process that how I work, and I just let me spit out ideas, it works out pretty well for me. It's like, okay, I'm fine with it. I'm used to people not liking a certain thing or preferring it, so I'll just keep working until you find something you like, and I don't mind that process. Honestly.
Is there any way the collaboration can be made easier on the music composer when it comes to, again, directors and editors? Like, maybe what could be helpful for you as a composer if a director should know?
So sometimes I go through the movie and I'll mark points where I think maybe a certain sound or impactful sound or swish or something will change, or just impactful points. It doesn't hurt for the director to sit down with the person and put the markers down and say, or have ideas and talk about oh, I was thinking about resolving this thing here, because it seems like the drama ends here, or the director could be like, no, actually I wanted to that was actually one talk I had. They're like, actually no, I think it should end here. I'm like, and it's it's your movie. I'm fine with that, but it always helps to get more opinions, and you can bounce the ideas back and forth. But just knowing what all the impactful stuff happens is very important, because those impactful moments are the storytelling moments. And also, like I said, communicating, give an example song, or talk about a feeling, or even a moment you had that made you have a feeling. Just like I said, everything's abstract, and this is not music. But I watched an interview about a Star Wars movie, and the guy's like, "Oh, when I knock on the kid couldn't make an odd face. You know what I mean? That he didn't trust the guy at the door. So he said, when I knock on the door, pretend like I made a fart, a really smelly one. The kid pretended and did that. He made the right face. So it's kind of like you kind of just got to work in unconventional ways to get this idea or feeling across, and just to communicate it. And when sometimes you'll say that something or say something weird, and person be like, oh yeah, I know what that feels like. And then they can, get that feeling rolling, and just be open to hearing the ideas and working through the process.
Have you had any incidents where it was really tough and you were really restricted in terms of what you could make? Have you had any experiences like that? Where basically where the director said, this is exactly what I want, and they had something in mind and they didn't want to move from that.
I haven't had those experiences, to be honest myself. I haven't had too many professional experiences, to be honest. But anything I feel like that comes up is more when you're that feeling more comes up when you're applying, or showing your portfolio, or giving an example, and you make it, and you're like, hey, and they kind of just yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. Move on. That's the closest, that's when it's cutthroat, and they're kind of just they already know, and they're just going to move on to the next person that's already, I feel like that happens in the selection process, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so if someone is directing a film, they should at least have some understanding of what kind of music the composer has already created, and based off on that, they should select the composer.
Yeah. Like I said, I've had a few experiences, but I feel like that feeling they say is just hey, no, they're just I haven't experienced it, but it feels like that one. They just kind of oh no, we don't like that, and it's just oh okay. There's no can you change or do anything? So I feel like it happens mostly in the selection process, but I could be wrong.
Okay. And talking about we talked about thriller genre. Let's say you are making a comedy film. Is the treatment, the research process, everything different for both? What kind of approach do you take?
Comedy, I feel like comedy is just much more in the background. Like you use, I feel like there's romance in comedy a lot, to counteract that feeling of the comedy. So there's happy moments and sad moments and uplifting. And I feel like comedy is one of the genres where the music is kind of very in the background, just very like playing straightforward, happy, sad feelings. Maybe exciting tells of the storytelling. But compared to like a thriller, I've been watching the thriller is a lot of tension release. There isn't like a lot of like celebrating or too much sadness going on. The sadness comes more in the form of some sort of tragedy, usually in a thriller, or kind of like ongoing. It's in a comedy, it's maybe a sad moment, not all the time, and then uplifting. But in maybe a thriller, some sort of ongoing sadness with the character, and a lot of the sounds make you feel uncomfortable in a thriller, or just on the edge of your seat, or kind of relate like like again Dexter. I'm watching, and they have like the double bass. They're really tall. I don't know if you know the instrument, like the big bass, and they got those big strings, and they're like, how they sound, like dong dong dong, like rubbery. And he's pulling up he's pulling up his shoestrings. Then if you ever have like a string, that's like the same thing. They're tight. And he's also, he chokes people with like, with the kind of string. So it's kind of all like that sound is really making you feel that string, that tightness, and that is making you feel the imagery as well, which you don't really get that as much with a comedy movie, but you really get that in those kind of horror thrillers. You're really trying to get the sound to make you feel the imagery, and it made me feel uncomfortable. It's usually that bass sound would not be uncomfortable, but watching you with that imagery, it makes you kind of feel uncomfortable. You kind of like, that shoelace, is he going to grab it and put it around my neck?
Right. As you said, like the instrument that was played made you feel that way. Has thriller genre? Have you noticed that thriller genre has always used any particular kind of instrument so far, historically speaking, and contemporarily also?
I feel like they use some similar instruments to horror, like for like there's like these long evolving sounds a lot of the time, or just evolving sounds like, or just odd like kind of plinks. I think xylophones. I think this horror movie xylophones or marimbas. Bing, bing, those sounds. I noticed jazz is kind of popular. In the thriller, it kind of gives the like the person like a kind of badass kind of vibe, the villain a kind of like, like a bad boy kind of vibe. I feel like that's very popular. It's kind of like you like him, but he's a bad person, or you like to hate him. And it's like watching a train wreck, you're watching. I feel like those have all been very popular things that come up a lot in the thriller genre.
Have you found any thriller movie that had very unconventional music than you would expect? Like they just went ahead and did something very odd than usual. Like how you said Dexter has that kind of music that they used, and I feel like what you're saying, I have seen that in other films as well.
I want to say it's hard for me to say that there's like anime that are using more contemporary style, like kind of electronic contemporary styles, but it's not. It's hard to say like what's too crazy with music is like everyone's so wild nowadays. But I think I don't know if this movie counts as thriller or horror, but that movie is Silent Place. I don't think they use like any music, and it's kind of just like that was kind of the most I think maybe there's the lack of music, even though there's not music. I think that's like the most um, kind of mind blowing, the biggest thing. They're talking about that.
The silence is
Yeah,
the
there's
music.
no sound in the movie, and that was
Right.
the biggest thing was the sound. It's kind of like a paradox, an oxymoron. It's kind of like and the reason I bring this up is just try to thinking outside the box is sometimes you put one of the questions of minimalism. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes we're hearing it so much. Just silence is music. There's that one composer John Cage. I don't know the actual name, but it's just let me look at the name. John Cage is I can say of the song. I think it's called like 4 minutes and 33 seconds, and that's just him just sitting. I forgot the exact name because I didn't know at the time, but it's him just sitting at the piano playing nothing, and that's like he's a contemporary composer, and it is the point was that what you're hearing around you is the music, or the silence is the music, and so it's not the first time it's been done that silence is the soundtrack or is the music itself.
Right. And I think it would work very nicely in a thriller or a horror. Reason being, we, especially our generation, is very scared of silence. We don't appreciate it much. We always want something going on, either it's the television or the phone or the laptop, music, podcast, like this one maybe. So I feel like silence is really scary for people. So it is again like kind of a background score that can be
Yeah,
there
and it
in a
was it was
thriller.
also not just that is
Yeah.
they made the decision it's the immersion that happens because the people in the movie the monster hears a sound and the people don't want to make the sound because of the monster, so you're kind of being put in their place almost. You're getting immersed into the movie anymore. If the story was different, it wouldn't be that same level of immersion. So it was also like a narrative deal on multiple levels.
So it is also like kind of a composer's would say it like smartness or duty to understand where to leave the silences
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. That takes me to the topic of temp music. So when a film is made, usually for I think for reference purposes or for their own help, people put little music before they send or share the material with the composer. Does that affect your vision in any sense? Like, does it affect the way you would think about the piece?
This is actually something we talked about in a scoring for visual media class. And what we did in the class is we made sure we saw the video with no sound first, so we wouldn't have like any pre-consisting notions in our head. And then whoever had it would show us the sound they had after. I do like having the sound to go back and answer your question, but I would like to see it without it first, so I can just be like have an idea or whatever. Just the with the feeling the plain visual gives me. And then it's great to hear the sound, see what kind of ideas or what kind of vibe you're trying to get. If I was close or it was off, and to have an idea to work towards. But one thing to warn is don't get too attached to the sound. And what I mean by that is like you're working on it, you have your temp sound so long, you listen to it so many times, you're working on it, and when you get the sound, nothing's going to sound right if you've listened to it so much. It happens a lot. So just this is important for when making music to be able to like step back and pretend you've never heard it before. Pretend you haven't even made this. Is not even your making or something. Or like step back and disassociate from that feeling you got with the temp track, and also same with your music. Be able to step back and be like, hey, look at it like you're another person.
Okay, and this is let's say the music is created, and then at some point you have to just give up on perfection, as you said that At just stop criticizing yourself. At some point, you have to stop perfecting it. And I think when you're at a film set, it works as a machine. So everyone has deadlines. Does it, of course, as you said earlier, that you should stop at some point and then, be satisfied with whatever it is. Does deadlines help you in that sense, or would you prefer setting up your own deadlines, especially for on a film set where there are other people also in line to get the product so that it goes ahead?
From what I know, most people don't like deadlines. I don't. I kind of enjoy deadlines. Not always. It is like very, very short, but if I have plenty of time, I usually like, hey, gives me a way to pace myself, and you know, kind of during the beginning, I'll just like work on a whole bunch of ideas and say this, that. And when it gets closer to deadlines, I'll just focus in on an idea and stick with it more and just develop that one idea more. So it gives me a process of time and just, say, hey, this is my experimental time. This is my buckle down time. And I don't have to be really too worried about too worried about stuff, because I know other people have to get the product too, whether I'm working or someone else gets in. Hey, does this work? I said they might have to send it back to me, and they need time to work on it too. So organization helps helps me.
Do you have any favorite films or directors who have been using the right kind of music, or any favorite music composer?
I like the video game composer like Nobuo Uematsu. He does the Final Fantasy soundtrack, and the Yoko Shimomura. She also did like the Final Fantasy Kingdom Hearts soundtrack. Those I would just listen to those and I'd be like, wow, this is like this composition of this music is crazy, and that's what's just made me want to be like more of like a composer, moving from like making the beats and production and music and songs, like pop hip hop, and like being like, oh, I want to make some crazy stuff like this. So they're very inspiring. But I'm inspired by many composers, but those are the two I was just like, whoa, I want to like get on their level. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course. You need to know what the benchmark
Yeah.
is for you. Like, this is what I want to be
Hmm.
in life. Yeah, I actually never thought about it. Like the gaming industry, all games have such great tracks
Yeah.
these days, and very catchy
Yeah.
also. Is the process again the same for it, or what?
It's it's kind of like a cross between the two. Like, let's say that there's things in a game called a cutscene, which is like your traditional like film. It's like a video. It kind of plays out and the thing happens, and so the music's probably going to be, unless the scene changes for a certain reason from time to time, the music's going to play like it does in a movie. But then if you're playing the game, moving your character around in the world and stuff, the music's probably going to just kind of be like looping in the background. Like some sort of theme or something. You're kind of going in the background. So it depends what's happening in the game, or it can be ambient, instead of looping. But it's kind of like a cross between the two.
So like they also have sections, like they have establishing shot, so they have music for that. Actions has different music, and then there is the general music that goes throughout
Yeah,
the
yeah.
game. Is that what?
You might even hear
Yeah.
like a kind of like if you're watching a movie and you just hear like the someone turns the radio on, you might hear The Rock, or who's popular, Sabrina Carpenter nowadays. Through the movie on the radio, same thing. Might turn on the radio in the game and you hear some popular song is or you're in Japan and you want to hear some authentic Japanese music, or you go to India, you want to hear some authentic Indian music in the game. And that's another thing where kind of representation comes in, proper representation.
Right. Um, One other thing that I was curious about, music composition for films is one thing that you do, or was one of the things that you were doing. And what are you doing right now? What projects are you
I am
working on?
kind of working on my own album. So I'm just working on my own songs and I'm releasing them. And I'm planning to start doing shows here in San Francisco Peninsula, Bay Area. and that's my goal for now. And just working on my audio visual gigs around here as well. It is. I'm having a hard time kind of putting a genre label on it. I guess it's kind of like a hip hop pop kind of. I kind of rap, kind of sing. The kind of like hip hop trap beats. I don't know, but also some pop. Just my goal is to make it so like it's just something like modern music that people want to listen to. Hopefully, like just vibe and dance to. But I don't know. Maybe if you hear my music, tell me what kind of genre you think it falls in. I've been trying to get that feedback. That's been one of my challenges. Is I make my music, and of course, as a musician, I want to like be unique, and we all want to be unique, and we kind of want to make music that's gonna like people want to listen to, but express ourselves. And I kind of don't know exactly what genre I would label it as.
So you would say like it's hip hop, but there's
Yeah,
more
it's
to
like a
it.
hip hop
It's
pop,
not
hip hop rap pop, kind of all mixed together.
right. And you're saying that you are doing concerts
I'm
of
working on it, so I'm working on my album
films.
right now, and then when it's done, I have like I just released 3 songs recently within the past few months, and I have a couple of songs I'm going to be releasing soon, and then I'm working around it probably like 10-ish songs, so I have a live set, and then I'm going to be going around doing that. So that's my project goals right now.
So the people who are in the San Francisco area, how can they be at one of your
Just
concerts?
look out for my name, follow me on Instagram, you know, stay on the lookout. I'm going to be posting my songs, and then when I'm ready for the concerts, I'm going to be posting that information. And you just, if you're following and you see it, it'll pop up on your screen, and there'll be some sort of link for you, for you to find out more.
And anything interesting that you look forward to in terms of any of the new projects?
Just getting out there and playing my music live. I've been working really hard. I have some new songs that I'm proud of, and I'm gonna just try to make a nice show. I've been getting into laser lights, like for the stage, so I'm trying to make some light shows to go along with my songs. So I'm excited. Just hopefully, I want to make a nice nice show for everyone.
Sounds really exciting. It's I look forward to that. I've heard few of the music that you have created, and it sounds
Thank
really
you.
great. I'll definitely share that
Thank
in
you.
the
I appreciate it.
description. Um, do you want to also do like a bit of a run through of how you create the music that you like hip hop, some music that people can dance to or listen to? Of course, that would be definitely different from gaming and films. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of similar to the process. I would say going back to how it's different, I guess it's the arrangement, which is kind of like the overall structure of the song. Where like as a song you listen to on the radio or something in the club, you kind of a little bit more repetitive. Where the song in the movie sometimes repetitive, but they kind of go on and they kind of tell a very grand story. It's kind of like like a Disney song or something. I like always that they're really singing their hearts out and telling their story. Um, but a lot of times I do get like a motif or a sound, and then I work from there. I really like to get a catchy melody. It doesn't always happen that way. But I like to start with that catchy melody or something that's catchy that people listen to, and then I will add the harmonies or add another part to it first, just to get the second part, and then start harmony, add the chords, and then put the melody and the second melody on top of the chords and work from there, and then make it so it'll loop back, and maybe make like a second part for the chorus, and and then come back to the first part and maybe like have an outro. So there's kind of like a structure depending on how the song wants to go. I used to kind of like make the whole beat first, and I was like looking for someone to sing or do the lyrics, but I've been kind of making the beat, and when I have some ideas for their lyrics, I start like putting them in and then kind of doing it side by side, so I can have the lyrics interacting with the music and build around it. And I've found that's been helping me. I also stay more focused in my workflow, stay better. Sometimes I don't do any research. I just make something. I'm just like inspired. There's a lot of times I do research. Like, let's say I want to make like some sort of no professional like flamenco music, Spanish music. Like I talked about video games, Japanese. I want to make it authentic. Look at the instruments to look at like what kind of notes or scales are used. Sometimes research is fun for me. Actually, sometimes research is actually what makes the music good because you get yourself out of doing the same thing over and over again. So you go research something new, you just start messing around with that. And okay, maybe the first time you mess with this, kind of weird. And the third time, you might get this really cool, completely different sounding idea. I never worked with a scale before, but I made some sort of hip hop beat, Middle Eastern hip hop beat or something. It's completely different. So that's a good way to get out of your funk, is just like doing some research and looking at some new stuff, and you know, just looking at like quote unquote musical formulas or whatever, that which I'm talking about, like scales or chords or stuff. Just look online, have some fun with it. It'll definitely get you out of a funk.
It's very different for me to listen about music, and after talking to you, I think I'll think in music for a while, I
Yeah.
guess. If that's a sentence, because I never, I think music is one of the things that goes unnoticed, but it's very important. If you take it out of the equation, things would become super
Yeah.
boring. Like in gaming, I do play a few games, so I felt like, yeah, the music is actually like, especially like games like NFS or God of War, the music plays such an
Mhm.
important role. Um, and I think lately, when I'm going using a bus or walking down the street or going to the gym, I cannot imagine a life without my headphones. So that, and of course, I make films myself, so I don't think I can do with silence. So I definitely need music for that. And I think today, talking after talking to you, I understand its value more than before. Thank you so much for
Of course.
being
Yeah,
here
yeah.
today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I learned so much about videos with you too. I remember, I know you're rapping maybe if you edit it. One thing that did help actually, I was learning about like, like camera shots and angles, and it helped me communicate with you. Like even learning the vocabulary, specific words, and it's like, oh, that's what you meant. Or like, oh, we're on the same page now. And so, I forgot about that. But it's one of the things that can help, do a little bit of study about whatever the whoever you're working on, so you can communicate with them easy.
Thank you so much. I feel like everyone is part of the
Yeah,
project as I am, and it's as much as their film as
yeah.
it's mine. So I'm glad I was
Yeah,
helping
it was
them
always
there.
great working with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Take
Kayvon.
care.
For everyone listening, be sure to check out Kayvon's work through the link in description. Support an independent artist, support his music, and follow his journey. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your fellow music or film lovers. Until next time, keep the creativity alive. Thanks for tuning in to Lights Camera Thrills.